Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're an executive or leading a corporate strategy team, today is for you. We're breaking down Apple's 2007 iPhone launch. But we're not just reminiscing about a cool piece of tech, right? We're framing this as a masterclass in high-level corporate strategy. We're going to see exactly how this product was positioned, promoted, and distributed so you can take these actionable mechanics right back to your own product pipelines. All right, here is our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 6 key areas. 1, identifying the market gap. 2, interface and product differentiation. 3, strategic alliances and autonomy. 4, secrecy and earned media. 5, feature scarcity and demand. And finally, 6, market impact and results. Let's dive right in. Section 1, identifying the market gap and redefining the quote-unquote smartphone problem. So to successfully position any new product, you absolutely have to identify an undeniable gap in the market. Think back to 2007. Early smartphones like the Moto Q or the BlackBerry, well, they weren't actually all that smart, and they were pretty frustrating to use. In fact, the bottom 40% of these devices were completely dominated by rigid plastic keyboards. They were literally stuck in one single physical configuration. So what was Apple's leapfrog approach? Simple. Ditch the plastic. By replacing those fixed buttons with a giant, adaptable 3.5-inch screen, Apple gave themselves the ultimate flexibility. They could completely change the user interface for every single application. Moving on to Section 2, interface and product differentiation, the multi-touch breakthrough. Now, Apple didn't just change the outer casing, they completely reimagined the entire ecosystem. At the time, all the competitors were relying on these clunky little styluses that, let's be honest, you'd inevitably end up losing. But Steve Jobs pointed out something brilliant. He famously said, "We are all born with the ultimate pointing device, our fingers." By capitalizing on this patented multi-touch technology, Apple just bypassed the stylus entirely. They created an interface that could handle complex, natural gestures while ignoring accidental touches. It set a completely new baseline for how we interact with mobile devices. Section 3, strategic alliances and autonomy, the massive AT&T partnership. Okay, as you know, developing a revolutionary product is really only half the battle. Steve Jobs actually spent 2 full years negotiating a deal with AT&T that completely upended industry norms. Apple gave AT&T exclusive multi-year carrier rights in the US and demanded 2-year customer contracts. That is a massive risk. But what was the trade-off? Apple secured the ultimate corporate prize, absolute developmental autonomy. Get this, only 3 executives at AT&T had even seen the iPhone before it launched. No one else. Plus, Apple expertly outsourced all the messy network management and customer service headaches back to the carrier, leaving their own team completely free to focus purely on product design. Which brings us to Section 4, secrecy and earned media, fueling the PR engine. That unprecedented level of developmental secrecy we just talked about, it wasn't just about protecting IP, it was actually an incredibly potent marketing tool. Harvard business professor David Yoffie estimated the value of the earned media Apple generated at a staggering $400 million. $400 million. And they achieved this simply by tightly controlling the flow of information and basically letting the media frenzy build entirely upon itself. But of course, Apple didn't just rely on free press. They were incredibly strategic about timing their paid media to sustain that massive wave of buzz exactly when organic interest started to dip. Their initial TV spot, that iconic Hello ad, premiered right during the Academy Awards. This was a masterfully orchestrated blend of intense secrecy, high-profile paid placement, and organic excitement. And it culminated in an astonishing 1,547 media stories running in the launch week alone. All right, Section 5, feature scarcity and demand, looking at strategic lifecycle management. When you're launching a product, you probably think it needs to do absolutely everything perfectly on day 1, right? Well, let's reframe that. The original iPhone famously launched without 3G network speeds, without third-party apps, and without even a basic copy and paste function. Were these engineering failures? Not at all. Jobs deliberately opted for slower Wi-Fi to preserve vital battery life for that first iteration. He kept the ecosystem locked down initially to guarantee absolute quality control. By intentionally leaving out things like video recording and copy/paste, Apple actually built a deliberate engine for long-term demand. Consumers knew an upgrade was coming, and Apple was already perfectly positioned to sell it to them. But lifecycle management also requires serious agility. Just 2 months post-launch, Apple took a really big risk. They slashed the iPhone's price by 33%. Naturally, this outraged the early adopters. But watch how Apple handled it. It was an absolute masterclass in crisis PR. Steve Jobs personally released a letter explaining the business rationale, and he immediately offered $100 store credits to those early buyers. It was a swift, highly decisive move that completely mitigated the outrage and kept their premium brand reputation perfectly intact. Finally, Section 6, Market Impact and Results. The bottom line validation. Ultimately, any corporate strategy has to be judged by its financial return. Check out this incredible doubling of Apple's stock price over the single year following the January 2007 announcement. The share value absolutely skyrocketed to over $179 by January 2008. This dramatic upward trajectory firmly validates the market's overwhelming confidence in Apple's strategic entry into the mobile space. And you know what? That market confidence was backed up by raw sales data. By mid-January 2008, Apple had sold a staggering 4 million physical units. They captured nearly 20% of the smartphone market share in that quarter alone. The financial viability of this highly premium-priced strategy was proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. And remember, they succeeded wildly even in the face of a looming global economic recession. So here's the bottom line. Apple didn't just build a better piece of hardware. They orchestrated a flawless go-to-market execution. They identified a massive gap, forced an unprecedented corporate alliance, dominated the media narratives, and managed their product lifecycle through incredibly deliberate iteration. So take these exact frameworks back to your own strategy teams. Ask yourselves, how can your company leverage controlled secrecy, strategic feature scarcity, and uncompromising alliances to leapfrog the competition? How will your next launch become your industry's iPhone?